It's ego.
Yeah.
It's ahamkar.
Yeah.
So ahamkar is the sense of I. You cannot be inadequate except without comparison.
Yep.
In order to make a comparison, there has to be a you and there has to be a we, right? I don't wake up today and be like, fucking right hand, you're so pathetic, and left hand, you're so beautiful. They're both part of me. The moment that I separate them out and I elevate one and I decrease the other, that is a literal, a scientific function of the ahamkara or the ego. So this is what you're talking about is basically attachment with ego.
Mm-hmm.
The more you are attached to your ego, and this is where you talk about, spirituality and the ego in the spiritual realm, which one of my teachers was awesome. He said, there's two kinds of ego. There's regular ego, and then there's the ego of having no ego, right?
Which is the most distasteful.
I'm egoless. I am so enlightened. I'm above everybody else. Look at all these. This guru is so popular, but I know more than them. Right? So that's all ego. And now we're really getting there, right? So shadow work will take you to 0 to 50. And then if you want to go to 50 to 75, you must eliminate or get rid of your ahamkar for the most part, or get control of it, we should say. Right. So the question, I don't remember what your original question was, but I think when do we get caught up in stuff?
Yeah.
And the language, I want you to go back and rewind and listen to the language that you used, because it's the language of ego. So I see myself through the perspective of me, me, me. And the moment that I step out of that, either through spiritual practice, which deactivates the default mode network, so the sense of self disappears, now I can see myself as an object, right? I'm not attached to it. Or when I see myself through other people, when I utilize empathy, now I'm putting myself in the other shoes, but I'm seeing myself from the outside. Once again, so these are all mechanisms that will give you perspective on your ego.
Yeah.
When we are trapped within ego, we don't realize that it's ego. Like if I talk to a narcissist and a narcissist is like, this person did it wrong and this person did it wrong and I'm surrounded by assholes. If you're surrounded by assholes, like you're the common denominator, right? So that attachment with ego is what blinds us to the perspective. And it's so interesting because the examples that you gave in your personal life are all examples of stepping outside of ego. Spiritual practice, conversations through podcasts, new perspectives. It's all ego related.
Yeah, it's interesting because we could really think of this as a linear process, but I think it comes in waves and, we're using the easy terminology of 0 to 50 and 50 to 75. It's fascinating with these different parts of our identity that we're unconscious to the process of which we're looking through our ego. And it's so slippery. And once we think we've gotten beyond it to a certain degree, it's right there in some other context often.
Yeah, well said. So that, that's a really brilliant thing. So it's interesting, right? So when we think we've conquered it, it tricks us again. The thought that I've conquered my ego is ego.
Exactly.
That's the mechanism of tricking you, right? So the moment you say to yourself, I've conquered it, that's your ego telling you, hey, you're getting really good at finding me. You're getting really good at controlling me. I don't like that. I'm going to tell you that you've won. So you stop fighting the battle.
Yeah, it's an interesting matrix of mind that we live in. I just think also through the process of maturation and coming to a place of feeling safe within our own experience, like these things start to bubble up to the surface. Has that been your experience working with people? Is the safety the kind of the precursor to being able to perceive and heal and let go of these things?
I mean, if you work with someone besides me, sure. So I will make you unsafe, right? What am I doing with you?
I don't feel threatened in any context.
So good. I'm glad. Right. So do some shadow work and then we'll talk again. I don't feel threatened. I'm fucking with you, man. So, but I think that honestly, my approach tends to be challenging, unsafe. The most common, the best feedback that I get from my community is I feel personally attacked.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we actually live in a world where we I know this is going to sound crazy, but we prioritize safety too much. So why would you want to be safe, Andre? In a situation, I'm not talking I'm going to mug you, but why is safety?
I would say maybe if through the lens of comfort, then we don't have to face off with the fearful parts of ourselves, the things.
But that's contrary to the work that we need to do.
No, exactly. But that's why I use the language of comfort. I think there is you, whether or not you admit it, create a safe space even for confrontation to occur. And so maybe you don't agree but it seems like when you work with individuals, there's an inherent, hey, I'm with you along this process. And even if I'm confronting you with something, we're getting at truth here. And it's not me against you. It's us looking at this neuroses together. And
Beautifully said.
yeah,
So I rescind my earlier statement. I defer to your precision of language. Love the fact that you use the word comfort. So the reason, and I think you're 100% correct. So what I try to offer people is compassion. But I think the word safety,
sure.
just like, I mean, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, which is people conflate safety with comfort.
hmm
So I remember when I was working at Harvard and stuff, I one day talked to the head of security at MIT. And then I was talking to him about safety on campus. And, one thing that he told me really stuck with me, which was like, it's my job to make students safe, not make them feel safe. Those are two very different things.
Huge distinction.
Huge,
Yeah.
right? And so love the precision in your language that, yeah, when I heard the word safety, I thought about comfort, right? That's oftentimes people, when we talk about safety, we oftentimes mean comfort.
It's very interesting too, because through the pleasure of this podcast, I've been able to meet a lot of great spiritual teachers and gurus and sages, however you want to describe. And
Where does that leave you? I'm serious.
just a humble student on the path. No, the reason I bring it up is because there are so many different textures of teachers, some that are extremely loving and others that are very intense and fierce. And it's easy from the mind to place judgment on what somebody's intentions are or how spiritually awakened they are. But I think in developing our capacity to pay attention to the subtleties, we can actually see how, it's just what you mentioned. What's important is that you actually wake up, that you are safe, not that you feel safe in a sense.
Yeah, so I think there's so much good stuff there. One is an awareness of your reactions, right? So your vasanas, your mental conditioning will cause you to react to someone in a particular way. And so awareness of that kind of thing. The one thing that I would push you a little bit on is just because you make a judgment doesn't mean that it's wrong.
Of course.
So like I think there are many people also in the spiritual realm who will say like, oh, like I'm being judgmental, therefore it is bad. Therefore, I will let the guru take advantage of me because that is,
yeah. There's a middle way here.
Yeah. So I think that unfortunately in the spiritual capitalism that we live in, there are plenty of false gurus.
Can you speak to that? Because this wellness industry, I mean, depending on how you look at it, is a $4 or $5 trillion industry. And there's this capitalistic notion of spirituality. Where does that go wrong in so many ways?
So I think it gets hijacked. So I think this is when it goes wrong. One really common pattern is someone who has some degree of spiritual development that is authentic. Then the ego. So the problem with spiritual development is that it gets harder over time, not easier. We have this idea that as I become more competent, I get better. So my experience has been the opposite, that the more developed you become, the harder things get. So it's kind of like climbing to the top of Mount Everest. Like once you climb the first 10,000 feet, like it's hard, but the next 10,000 feet is harder. The next 10,000 feet is even harder. This is where we get, and then I think subtler forms of ego come into play, right? So there's the regular ego. Then there's the ego of having no ego. Then we get to the super dangerous territory of siddhis. You know what a siddhi is?
Yeah.
So once you develop siddhis, it becomes really hard to navigate in the world.
What are those for people that don't know?
Siddhis are, I guess you could call them psychic powers. So this is my favorite. So what I love about westernization of spirituality is we love the part that we understand and we just wipe away the rest of it. And there's this bizarre cultural appropriation that's going on with spirituality. So Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, right? So everyone's like, Ashtanga yoga, 8-limbed yoga, yoga's great. There's scientific studies on yoga. And Patanjali sort of like wrote the Bible of yoga, I guess in the West, people kind of call it that, right? But he has the third chapter of his book so he talks about what is an asana, what is a yoga posture, what is the mind, like there's this conscious, the right knowledge, wrong knowledge. Basically everything is like super scientific, super acceptable. And then he's got a very small section, chapter 3 of his text. Is like really small. It's the shortest one. And he's like, by the way, here are all the psychic powers you can develop. Here's time travel. Here's conquering death. Here is teleportation. Here's these things. And he says, here are the ways you develop them and don't get distracted by them. And it's just like this tiny little thing. It's like an aside. He's not saying like, if you pay this exclusive price for this workshop, I'm going to teach it to you. He's like, by the way, if you do all the shit at the beginning and you do pranayama and you do all these spiritual practices, these things will happen. It is a warning. Just don't mess around with it. Right? So as you get better and better and better, and as siddhis and things like that develop, like it becomes harder, not easier. So like, and it's because it's so hard, right? Because if people are like, if I had $1 billion, I would start fixing things. And if you develop a siddhi, your capacity to make the world a better place becomes way easier. But it has all kinds of like negative stuff that goes with it, because then suddenly like I am saving things. And who am I? How, like, it's kind of weird, but you can even judge yourself where like, if I could save someone and I don't, what does that make me? So the ego that you deal with becomes subtler and subtler and subtler. And there's also an element of Shakti there, that the moment that you externalize your Shakti, so I can add money to my bank account, I get compound interest, I become a millionaire, I have $10 million. The moment that I start spending huge swaths of money, my bank account will drop. So there's also a process on the spiritual road of like, as you grow and as you progress, you're building this like mountain of compound spiritual interest money stuff, energy, Shakti stuff. And if you start expending it in the utilization of siddhis, it will expend a gigantic amount of money. And we can talk about why that is and what happens and stuff. But
so that's why it's particularly dangerous, from ego to ego of no ego to that part of the siddhis, is that could go wrong very quickly in a sense.
Very quickly, right? So the higher you are, the easier it is to fall and the more that it hurts. So I think in the spiritual capitalism realm, we have people who are not quite grifters, but I think they understand spiritual things, vidya, but they haven't like done the work. Then you'll have people who have done the work. And then since the lineage of gurus is basically sort of like not broken, but it's like hard to find now, you have a lot of people who don't have proper guidance. And so they fall off the path. Even though they accomplish, they fall off the path very easily. And then you have the people who don't fall off the path, but they're rare and usually hard to find, let's say. We'll say most of them are not in the public eye, I would say.